We can't keep sweeping this under the rug.
I'm trying to help you, Maya, but you have to trust the process.
The process is broken.
Why didn't you just tell me the truth back then?
Your father made sure I understood exactly what staying would cost me.
The trauma bay door slammed open at 4:52 in the afternoon, and Nurse Cheyenne Ashford heard the paramedic's voice before she even saw the gurney. 4-year-old male, bicycle versus car, possible internal bleeding, pressure dropping fast. The medication tray in her hands hit the floor before she understood why her body had already started moving. A small stuffed rabbit was tangled in the boy's fingers. She had sewn that rabbit's ear back on herself 3 weeks ago at their kitchen table at midnight while he slept. Micah. The name broke out of her before 5 careful years of silence could stop it. She was already running toward her own son. Grace Kang Children's Hospital had the best trauma team on the East Coast. Cheyenne had trained half of them herself. None of that mattered now because the moment the doctors drew his blood, they would find something that made every alarm in the building scream twice as loud. Micah did not just have a rare blood type. He had a blood type that should not have existed anywhere in this hospital system. Unless someone finally asked the one question Cheyenne had spent 5 years making sure nobody asked. Who is this child's father? Dr. Alvarez's voice was clipped through the glass. We need a compatible donor now. His type is not in the general bank. Cheyenne pressed her badge against the scanner with a shaking hand. 7 years a nurse in this building, and in this moment she was just a mother standing outside a door, begging to be let in to save her own child. A hospital administrator she barely recognized stepped in front of her. Ma'am, staff are not permitted in an active trauma bay during a code. I'm his mother. I understand you're upset, but I need you to step back. Cheyenne had been dismissed by people with far more power than a nervous administrator. She had survived worse than a locked door. But nothing had ever cut like being kept 3 feet from her dying son by a rule built for strangers. She was not a stranger. She had spent 5 years making sure nobody ever mistook her for one again. Inside, the lab technician frowned at the screen twice before calling it in. Micah's blood carried a rare combination, one that matched almost no one on record. Not even the hospital's own emergency reserve. The kind of match usually only found between close blood relatives. Dr. Alvarez ordered an immediate family screening. Cheyenne's blood was drawn within minutes. She was, thankfully, a partial match, enough to stabilize him while they searched for someone stronger. But a partial match would only buy hours, not certainty. Cheyenne's hand found the small zippered pouch tucked inside her cardigan pocket, the way it always did whenever the ground beneath her started to shift. She did not open it. She never opened it in public. Her grandmother, Odessa, used to tell her that blood remembers everything the world tries to forget, and for 5 years Cheyenne had carried proof of exactly what that meant, sealed in plastic, tucked close to her heart. Somewhere in a file Cheyenne had never let anyone open, there was a name that would have solved this in seconds. She had promised herself she would carry that name to her grave before she let it hurt her son the way it had once hurt her. She did not know yet that the name was already walking through the front doors of the hospital that carried his mother's name on the wall. Julian Kang had not planned to be at Grace Kang Children's Hospital that afternoon. He was only there to walk the site of the new NICU wing, the one he had personally funded in his mother's memory, the one he visited more often than any board meeting required, because it was the only place in the company that still felt like her. He heard the code called over the hospital radio the same way he heard every code in his hospital, with his full attention. 4-year-old internal bleeding, rare type, mother on site. He should have kept walking. Instead, he turned toward the trauma wing, the way he always did, because his mother once told him that a man who owns a hospital and never checks on its patients does not deserve to own one. He rounded the corner into the family waiting area and stopped so completely that his chief of staff nearly walked into his back. Cheyenne Ashford was standing there in blue scrubs, a gauze square taped over the crook of her elbow where they had just drawn her blood, tears cutting clean lines through 5 years of composure. 5 years since he had watched her walk out of his life without a single word of explanation. 5 years, and here she was fighting for a child's life inside his own hospital, and he did not yet know the child was his. Before we go any further, I want you to sit with this moment. A mother who buried the truth for 5 years, now standing a few feet away from the only man who could save her son, and he still does not know why. If stories like this reach something real in you, that is exactly what we build here at Empire City Romance Stories. So hit subscribe and drop a like before we keep going. And tell me in the comments where in the world are you watching this from tonight? Because Cheyenne is about to face him for the first time in 5 years, and she is nowhere near ready. Cheyenne. Her name and his voice still did something to her chest that 5 years had not fixed. Not now, Julian. Her voice cracked around his name. My son is in there. Your son. Something moved behind his eyes, quick and sharp. You have a son. I have a son who needs blood I don't have enough of, so unless you can help with that, I need you to move. He did not move. You left. 5 years ago you just left. No call, no letter, nothing. And now I find you here, a mother, and you expect me to just. I expect you to move, Julian. Her voice shook, but her spine did not. We can hate each other after my son is safe. Something about the word safe made his jaw tighten in a way she used to know by heart. He stepped aside, but his eyes caught the small overnight bag at her feet, the one with a child's drawing taped to the front, a crayon sun over 2 stick figures holding hands. One of them had dark hair drawn the exact same way Julian had worn his own since he was a boy. Inside, Dr. Alvarez was running down a list of secondary donors with the transfusion coordinator when Julian walked in, still in his suit, still pale. Run his full panel against the Kang family donor registry, Julian said. It was a policy he had insisted on years earlier, half sentiment, half caution, for the hospital's board members. Nobody questioned the CEO's orders inside his own hospital. 40 minutes later, Dr. Alvarez found Julian in the hallway with a printout in her hand and an expression that made him brace against the wall. His blood markers are a near-perfect familial match to your genetic profile in our donor system, Mr. Kang. Not a coincidence match. A parent-child match. The hallway seemed to tilt. That's impossible. I have run it twice. Julian thought of the drawing on the overnight bag. The dark hair drawn just like his own. 5 years since Cheyenne Ashford left without a single word. 5 years since his father sat him down in the study and told him gently, regretfully, that she had taken a settlement and gone, that some people simply were not built for a life like his. He had believed his father completely. Standing in that hallway with his hands shaking, he was starting to understand that he never should have. Here is a question I want you to really sit with. If protecting your child meant carrying a secret that could break someone else's heart, would you still call that love? Or would you call it betrayal? Cheyenne believed silence was the only way to keep her son safe. Julian is only just beginning to understand what that truth cost him. If you believe some secrets are kept out of love and not cruelty, tell me why in the comments, and hit that like button before we keep going, because what Julian does next is going to surprise you. Julian walked back into that waiting area a different man than the one who had walked out of it. Full hospital resources immediately, he told Dr. Alvarez. Whatever this donor search requires, whatever specialists you need, I want them here within the hour, and I want it billed to my personal account, not the hospital's. Cheyenne stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. Julian, you don't have to. He's my son. His voice broke on the word in a way she had never once heard from him in 3 years of knowing him, not even the week his mother died. I don't get a say in whether I have to. I only get a say in what I do about it. For the first time in 5 years, Cheyenne watched Julian Kang choose to lead with his heart instead of his father's rulebook. It terrified her because she knew exactly whose rulebook that was, and she knew he had no idea yet how deep his father's hand had reached into this. They sat together outside the pediatric ICU as machines steadied Micah's small body through the night. Why didn't you tell me? Julian asked quietly, no anger left in it now, only the exhaustion of a man rebuilding a memory from scratch. Cheyenne reached into her bag and pulled out a small hospital bracelet, faded plastic, a name and a date printed on it in ink gone soft with age. She had carried it sealed in a pouch for 5 years, through 3 apartments and 1 hospital transfer, because it was the only proof she had that any of it was real. Your father came to see me 2 days after I found out I was pregnant, she said. He told me you were already promised to someone else for the merger. He told me that if I said one word to you, he would make sure I never held a nursing license in this state again, and he would make sure my mother lost her position at the community clinic she had worked at for 20 years. Julian's hands went still in his lap. I never took a settlement, Julian. I never took a cent from your family. I left because your father made sure I understood exactly what staying would cost the people I love. I raised Micah alone because it was the only choice your father left me." He looked at the bracelet in her hand like it was the only honest thing in the entire hospital. By morning, Richard Kang had heard everything. He arrived at the hospital before visiting hours, immaculate as always, and found his son standing outside the ICU with a sleeping 4-year-old's medical chart in his hands. "Julian." "A word. You lied to me." Julian did not look up from the chart. "For 5 years. I protected this family during the most fragile quarter this company has ever seen." Richard's voice stayed level, controlled, the voice of a man who had never once had to raise it to win. That woman would have ended the merger and everything it built, including this hospital's entire new wing. Her name is Cheyenne. And that woman is the mother of your grandson. "Then let's be smart about how the world learns that," Richard said. "For the boy's sake and for the company's." Cheyenne, standing just behind Julian, heard the threat wrapped so carefully inside concern that it took her a moment to recognize it as the same voice that had once stood in her mother's kitchen and promised to destroy everything she loved. "You are not managing this story," Julian said. "Not this time." In just a few moments, Julian is going to find out exactly how far his father went to keep this secret buried. And it is worse than anything Cheyenne told him. Before we get there, I want you to predict it in the comments right now. What do you think Richard Kang actually did 5 years ago? Hit subscribe if you want to see whether your guess was right, because once Julian sees the proof, nothing about this family stays the same. Julian went looking for answers in the one place his father could not control, the hospital's own archived admission records, sealed under his authority as CEO. He found Cheyenne's file from 5 years earlier in less than an hour. Attached to it was a confidentiality settlement, dated 2 days before Micah's birth, authorizing a quiet 6-figure payment to preserve the reputation and merger timeline of Kang Meridian Group. The signature at the bottom belonged to his father. Not a rumor. Not a memory. A document filed and sealed inside the same hospital his father had helped build to look like a monument to love. Cheyenne's hospital bracelet, the one she had kept sealed for 5 years, carried an admission code that matched the settlement file down to the hour. Proof she had never taken a cent, proof the money existed only as a bribe his father tried and failed to make her accept. Proof his father had known about his own grandson since the day he was born, and chosen every single day since to say nothing at all. Julian sat alone in his office with both documents in front of him, and finally understood the full shape of what silence had cost all 3 of them. Blood remembers everything the world tries to forget. His mother used to say that about this hospital, about every chart that told the truth long after people had stopped talking. He understood now that she had been right about far more than medicine. The board meeting Richard Kang called to discuss a family matter did not go the way he expected. Julian stood at the head of the table and placed both documents in the center of it, in front of every director his father had spent 30 years cultivating. "My father authorized a settlement to hide the birth of his own grandson," Julian said. "He threatened a nurse inside this hospital's own registry to protect a merger. I am not asking this board to punish him. I am asking this board to remove him as chairman effective today, because a man who cannot be trusted with his own family's truth cannot be trusted with this company's." Richard did not argue. For the first time in Julian's life, his father said nothing at all. The vote took 4 minutes. Richard Kang walked out of that boardroom without his title, but he stopped at the door and said the only fully true thing Julian had ever heard him say about any of it. "I told myself I was protecting you. I was only protecting myself from watching you choose someone I could not control." Micah came home from the hospital on a bright Tuesday morning. 3 weeks later, steady and laughing, Captain the Rabbit tucked under one arm. Julian was there when the discharge papers were signed, not because anyone required it of him, but because he had shown up every single day since that boardroom, in quiet hospital visits and quiet mornings at Cheyenne's kitchen table, never once asking for more than she was ready to give. "I know an apology does not undo 5 years," he told her on the porch, while Micah chased a butterfly across the yard. "I believed a story instead of coming to find you and asking for the truth myself. That failure was mine, not only my father's, and I am not asking you to hand back your trust just because I am sorry. I am asking for the chance to earn it slowly, For as long as it takes, by proving I am not my father. Cheyenne watched her son laugh in the sunlight, safe, loved, finally known by both the people who made him. You already started proving it, she said. The day you chose the truth over the boardroom. Grandma Odessa had always said that blood remembers everything the world tries to forget. Cheyenne finally understood that when two people are patient enough, so does the heart. 6 months later, Grace Kang Children's Hospital opened a new family support wing, funded personally by Julian Kang, and run by its newest director of patient advocacy, Cheyenne Ashford, a role she built herself on her own terms, answering to no one's name but her own. Micah turned 5 that spring, in a backyard full of people who finally knew exactly who he was. This has been another story from Empire City Romance Stories, where the truth always finds its way home, no matter how long it stays buried. If this story moved you tonight, hit subscribe, leave this video a like, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. And I want to know in the comments below, would you have told the truth the moment you found out? Or protected your child in silence the way Cheyenne did? Tell me your honest answer below. I will see you in the next story.